He didn't believe in miracles. But somehow, here he was, standing on the cracked sidewalk of his childhood neighborhood, arguing with the sky. "You have to be kidding me?" Mark muttered, kicking at a loose pebble as if the universe owed him an explanation. And then he saw Himathan leaning casually against a faded mailbox, eyebrows raised, smirk threatening to turn serious at any second. Mark's chest tightened like a vice. Of course Ethan would appear at the exact moment when life felt unbearably absurd. Ethan, with his eyes that somehow saw right through all the layers Mark tried to hide behind sarcasm and noise. Ethan, who had the audacity to look effortlessly perfect in a plain white t-shirt and jeans, sun catching just enough of his black hair to make it glow faintly. "You're late," Ethan said, voice deceptively calm. "I was about to think you'd never show up for your own existential meltdown." "I've never been on time for anything important," Mark replied, his words sharper than intended. But Ethan didn't flinch. He never did. Instead, he stepped closer, and the air seemed to hum between them. Mark could almost feel the warmth radiating off Ethan, like sunlight he wasn't allowed to touch. For a moment, the world contracted to just that small strip of pavement, the neighborhood's peeling fences and distant barking dogs fading into insignificance. Mark swallowed hard, realizing that everything he had believed about life, love, and what it meant to be safe had been quietly dismantled by the person in front of him. Ethan's hand brushed his accidentally, deliberately, and Mark's mind short-circuited. "You're thinking too much again?" Ethan murmured, eyes scanning Mark's face like a detective who already knew all the secrets. "Why do you always do that?" Mark laughed, but it was bitter. "Thinking too much is my specialty," he admitted. "But praying to a fertility god? That's a new level, even for me." Ethan's smirk softened into a genuine smile, a fleeting glimpse of tenderness that made Mark's knees almost buckle. "You mean the one you told me about in that text last night? I was laughing so hard I woke up my neighbor." "I wasn't joking," Mark said, eyes fixed on the ground to hide the heat creeping up his neck. I needed something to change the chaos inside me. And maybe," he glanced up at Ethan, heart thudding like it might burst, "maybe I needed you to care." Ethan's expression shifted, from playful to something far deeper, almost solemn. He reached out, brushing Mark's hair behind his ear with a tenderness that felt scandalous in its intimacy. "I care," he said simply. "More than I should." The confession hung between them, heavier than the late afternoon sun. Mark wanted to argue, to shove it away and insist it was impossible, absurd, doomed. But the warmth in Ethan's eyes broke through all of that, leaving him exposed, trembling, and wanting. "Then, maybe it worked," Mark whispered. "Maybe the god actually—" Ethan cut him off with a laugh, soft and melodious, that made the air between them thrum. "The god? Or just me?" Mark's lips twitched into the beginnings of a smile, but he didn't move closer, didn't dare. Not yet. There was something intoxicating about this distance, this tension, a delicious torment that made every second unbearable and unforgettable. Ethan tilted his head, gaze lingering, daring him to bridge the space. Mark's mind raced, images of quiet nights, accidental touches, and laughter that felt like it might never end, flickering through his memory. And then, finally, he stepped forward, closing just a fraction of the gap, hands trembling as if they might betray him. Ethan's grin returned, slow, knowing, and like gravity itself had shifted. The two of them found a rhythm that wasn't words but something deeper, something that had been waiting for a long time to exist. It was fragile, terrifying, and completely undeniable. "You're ridiculous," Ethan murmured, resting his forehead against Mark's. "Do you even realize how ridiculous you are?" Mark laughed, the sound breaking like sunlight through clouds. "And you're dangerous," he replied, the tension between teasing and longing unbearable. They stayed there for a long moment, the street stretching empty around them, the golden light painting everything with quiet perfection. Somewhere far away, life went on, indifferent, but in this small corner, in the middle of nothing, the world felt intensely alive. Mark didn't know if praying to a fertility god had anything to do with this. He didn't care. Because in this closeness, this breathless proximity to Ethan, he realized that miracles didn't have to be divine. They could be human, messy, electric, and impossibly warm. The sun was dipping lower now, painting long golden streaks across the pavement, turning the neighborhood into a surreal canvas. Mark and Ethan didn't speak for a while, letting the silence stretch, a silence that wasn't empty but full of everything they hadn't dared to say. Mark's hand hovered near Ethan's. Then he let it drop, too nervous to make the move he so desperately wanted. Ethan, noticing, tilted his head, a silent question in his gaze. Mark felt his chest tighten. He started, then stopped. Words always failed him around Ethan. Ethan laughed softly, a sound that seemed to make the fading sun warmer. "You don't have to say it," he whispered, stepping closer so that Mark could feel the heat of him. "Actions are louder anyway." Mark's stomach flipped. That was a test, he realized, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe Ethan had stopped playing games a long time ago, and it was just him, still hiding behind jokes and sarcasm. Slowly, hesitantly, Mark raised his hand, letting it brush against Ethan's. That contact, small and tentative, sent a jolt straight to his heart. "You know," Ethan murmured, his voice low and rich, "I've always wondered if you'd ever let me in." Mark swallowed hard. "I didn't think I could," he admitted, his voice shaking. I wasn't sure I deserved someone like you." Ethan's fingers tightened slightly around Mark's. "You do," he said matter-of-factly, like stating an undeniable truth. "More than anyone knows." For the first time in what felt like forever, Mark believed him. And with that belief came a rush of courage. He leaned in, heart hammering, and let his forehead rest against Ethan's. The world narrowed, the street, the houses, the distant sounds all faded to insignificance. There was only warmth, closeness, and that faint thrill of being seen completely. They didn't rush. No sudden movements, no dramatic confessions beyond what their bodies and eyes already spoke. Just the simple act of standing together, letting time stretch like taffy, feeling each other's breaths, and sharing unspoken promises. Ethan finally spoke, breaking the silence in a whisper that made Mark shiver. "I've wanted this for so long. You here now. Feels like coming home." Mark let out a shaky laugh. "Coming home," he repeated, tasting the words like a fragile treasure. He had never thought of home as a person, but with Ethan, it suddenly made perfect sense. The golden light began to fade, shadows swallowing the street, but they didn't move. The closeness, the warmth, the quiet intimacy, it was a sanctuary from everything else. And then, gently, almost reverently, Ethan pressed his lips to Mark's. It wasn't a dramatic kiss, the kind movies made seem earth-shattering. It was soft, tentative, full of unspoken apologies, confessions, and hope. Mark responded slowly, as if savoring a taste he had imagined 1,000 times but never truly experienced. Every nerve in his body was alive, every heartbeat synced with Ethan's. When they pulled back just slightly, Mark rested his forehead against Ethan's again. "I prayed," he admitted softly, "but I didn't expect it to come like this, not exactly how I imagined." Ethan chuckled, brushing a thumb across Mark's cheek. "Prayers work in mysterious ways," he said. "Or maybe the God just knew you needed me more than the miracle you asked for." Mark felt warmth flood his chest, not the kind that comes from sun or skin, but the kind that grows slowly, filling every hollow space. "I guess, maybe some miracles are human," he whispered. Ethan smiled, leaning in to rest his head against Mark's shoulder. "Then let's make sure we're each other's miracle every day." For the first time in years, Mark felt something he hadn't dared to hope for: peace. Not the calm that comes from avoiding problems, but the quiet certainty that he wasn't alone. That someone, in all the chaos and absurdity of life, truly understood him and wanted to be there, fully, unconditionally. The sky darkened to a deep navy, and streetlights flickered on, casting a soft glow over the quiet neighborhood. Cars passed occasionally, distant laughter echoed from a nearby house, and the world continued, oblivious to this small, perfect moment. And that was exactly how Mark wanted it: private, intimate, alive. Ethan pressed a gentle kiss to the top of Mark's head, and Mark leaned fully into him, feeling the steady warmth radiating through Ethan's body. "You're here," Mark murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "And that's enough. That's all I need," Ethan replied, tightening his hold. "You and me. That's our miracle." The wind picked up slightly, rustling the leaves along the cracked sidewalk, and for a fleeting second, Mark imagined the fertility gods standing somewhere out there, nodding with approval at how human hearts could make magic happen. Mark laughed softly, and Ethan joined in, their chuckles blending, carrying over the empty street like a small rebellion against everything sad or lonely. They didn't have to explain, argue, or question. Everything that had been broken or uncertain melted in the simple, profound certainty of being together. "I don't want this night to end," Mark admitted, finally looking up into Ethan's eyes. "Can we just stay like this?" Ethan's grin was tender, playful, full of love and something fierce and protective. "We can stay like this forever if you want," he said. "But for now, let's just start with tonight." And so they did. Two bodies, close, almost fused in the gentle embrace of twilight, standing on a quiet American street. The world stretched vast around them, but in that small golden bubble of warmth and human connection, they had found what both had secretly prayed for. Not just love, but a home, a sanctuary, and a miracle that wasn't from above but from each other. And for Mark, that was enough. More than enough. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.